Thanks for tuning into the 6Three podcast. I'm your host, Joel, with my co-hosts Isaiah and Ben. Major League Baseball season, the long 162-game season kicks off on Thursday, 1:05 with the Blue Jays and the Yankees. So we are going to make this our Major League Baseball preview show, and Ben is the resident expert, and so he's going to be running the show on this.
Sweet. First thing I want to say.
Ben played like 20 games in the MLB, right?
Yes. Just 20, yes. So first thing I did want to point out is really excited that the season is going to be normal this year. 162 is cool. We don't really need to discuss whether that's too many or not, we're bringing that down eventually. But whatever, we can go into that some other time. But it's going to be cool to have a normal MLB season this year. Kind of how I wanted to do this, we'll just kind of go kind of division by division and break it down and see what we think, see how we think these divisions are going to shake out. I want to start actually over in the National League West.
Wow.
So where do you guys?
Start at the bottom of my list.
So obviously, there's probably two clear-cut leaders here in this division, and then there's some teams that fall off. But I guess Isaiah, we can start with you. Where do you kind of how do you see this division shaking out? And then you see, I mean, it's pretty easy. This is why I picked it first. This is not that difficult of a division.
Yeah. Well, and I think like in the shortened season, I mean, I know it ended up being I think they were like 5 or 6 games behind, but like it ended up like there were times where San Diego was in shot of winning the division, but like I think that was much to the effect, as we'll talk about with a lot of these teams, of like because it was a shortened season. But I think that's why they were within striking range. But like give 162 games and that Dodgers squad is just going to break away from the rest of the division. I still think the Padres get into the playoffs. Like I still think they're a good team.
For sure.
But yeah, if we're just picking winners, I just don't see. I think we'll talk. You said before the show we'll talk about like best worst case scenario for some of the teams. Like one of the worst case scenarios for the Dodgers is just simply not winning their division. So I'm going to pick them to win the division just because I think they're like, I think the Padres are good. They're a playoff team, but like the Dodgers are just too stacked to lose.
Yeah.
Dodgers are good up and down this entire lineup. I mean, you kick it off with Mookie Betts, Corey Seager's. I mean, many people have him projected as NL MVP. Justin Turner's been there forever. Max Muncy's kind of a solid guy there. I wouldn't say he's anywhere near their top 5 even in this lineup, but you got Bellinger in there. Gavin Lux is going to be a future stud, I think. And then you got the rotation of the legendary Clayton Kershaw. Walker Buehler's now better than Kershaw. Trevor Bauer's in that conversation. And David Price is like their 6th man in the rotation. So they're deep all the way through. They got guys that can hold a lead in the bullpen. I think a worst case scenario is literally 90 wins, and I still think that could potentially get them a wild card in the National League. So
yeah, I'm pretty much on board with what you guys are saying. The Dodgers, if we want to go best case, worst case for them is they could push towards MLB record and wins. They're that good on paper. So I mean that's something that I think obviously you're never going to say that they're going to break an MLB record for wins, but because it's really hard to do. But I think they are a clear-cut World Series favorite, clear-cut World Series contender at the least. Worst case scenario for them is that they win 90+ games and they still get a wild card. In my opinion, that will probably. I don't really see them missing the playoffs, barring a handful of catastrophic injuries. And that's how deep and good they are. They're going to need a lot of guys to get hurt in order for them to not be that right there. There are some concerns with the team. Kershaw's had back problems, a lot of back problems recently. Buehler's had some blister problems. Julio Urias, who they're going to rely on out of the bullpen and for starts, has had shoulder issues. Bellinger's been hurt. Seager's been hurt. So there's some injury problems there that have popped up before, but I really don't see. They're not all going to get hurt at once, so it's really not a team that I see falling too short, and I really don't see them losing this division. However, the upstart Padres, pretty loaded as well. Obviously, they loaded up this offseason on pitching. Added Yu Darvish and Blake Snell and Joe Musgrove, who I think is a little bit underrated. Fernando Tatis Jr. might be the next superstar. Is probably the next superstar. They have a little bit of a lower floor, in my opinion, though, than a team like the Dodgers, just because of their depth and just their lineup isn't quite as deep, isn't quite as long. So yeah, best case scenario for them, they're a World Series contender for sure. They're not necessarily as locked in, I guess, on that as the Dodgers, I would say, but they're definitely a team that could push towards that. They're talented enough if all things click. Worst case scenario, they've got some injury problems, and they kind of lose. Guys like Will Myers and Eric Hosmer and a few other guys kind of overperformed in that shortened season last year compared to what they've done before. So if they kind of reverse back, they might have a little bit more of not necessarily a down year. I think they'll still have a record, possibly push towards 90 wins, but you never know if that's going to get you into the playoffs in a tough NL. So that's their worst case scenario, but I do still see them making the playoffs. If you go towards the bottom of the division, kind of some garbage here. The Giants have some talent, a few young guys like Yastrzemski.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be really good. Obviously, he's got the bloodlines there, but he's going to be good. Buster Posey's coming back to play after he opted out last year, I believe. But they're relying on guys like Johnny Cueto and Aaron Sanchez and like Anthony DeSclafani, and that's not something that you want to rely on in a division that's has two clear-cut favorites. So other than Yastrzemski and like Buster Posey, and I like Tommy La Stella as well. I think he's a good
they got Evan Longoria as the pinch hitter, man.
They do, yeah. I just don't see them. They're not going to be. I don't see them being much. And then obviously you're looking at a team like the Diamondbacks. They get mad.
I think they have the fastest player in the league though. Like Tim LeCastro is one of the fastest guys.
Oh yeah, he can absolutely fly, but you got to be able
that's not going to make and break a team. Like that'll get you 28 stolen bases.
Their bullpen is not good. Zach Gallen's pretty good. I think I like him.
They have the old guys. They have like Tyler Clippard and Joaquin Soria.
Madison Bumgarner is old as well. He's on the decline. Obviously, like he's proven that he's kind of just a workhorse, but it eventually kind of Father Time's eventually going to catch up to him.
I do like the young guys: Ketel Marte, Josh Rojas, Nick Ahmed. Those guys are all right.
Well, I will say this: I would actually probably pick
Calhoun.
I would actually probably pick the Diamondbacks above the Giants because I think they have more talent. I like a lot of their pieces, but David Peralta I think is a good player as well. But again, they're not going to be able to push the Padres or the Dodgers. And then if you move down to the bottom, the Rockies. The Rockies' worst case scenario is they're the worst team in baseball.
Their best case scenario is they get the number one pick.
Yeah, you can look at it a couple different ways. Obviously, like Kyle Freeland's pretty good and is showing some promise. And a couple years ago, he was very good. John Gray is decent. Trevor Story's obviously a star at shortstop. That's it. They lost their best player. They lost their best player now, Nolan Arenado. He was pretty much the only reason. He and Story were pretty much the only reason to watch the Rockies any other time previously. They're not going to be very good. I would say they're pushing. They're going to be a 60-win team-ish. I don't even know if they'll touch 60 yet, but a best case is 70, and that's if like CJ Cron hits 45 homers, and Charlie Blackmon has been the Charlie Blackmon in like the last 3 or 4 years, and then Trevor Story is obviously like a top 20 player in the league, I think. Yeah, I would say so.
Sure, top 20 hitter.
Yeah.
And then, obviously Herman Marquez, John Gray, and I got Austin Gomber's numbers, so maybe I'm a little bit of bias in that respect. But and Chichi Gonzalez, did he play for the Dodgers last year?
He did, yeah.
It's the name. It's the name for me. So that's a best case scenario is like 70 wins and like 92 losses, but I think they could be under 60 wins this year.
Yeah, they're not going to be very good. Yeah, I mean, and you can throw in worst case scenario would be if Nolan Arenado goes and wins MVP while Colorado is still paying his entire salary. That would be
That's insult to injury.
That would be really bad. So it could happen. But I think we're pretty much done with that division. We can head over to the National League Central now. I think this will be a little bit more interesting, top to bottom.
It's not this division does not look good to me on paper. Like, I don't think this division winner hits 90 this year. I don't think they have 90 wins this year as division winner.
No, they're going to beat each other up. So I don't think there's if you look at the top 3 teams, 4 even really, because I think the Reds have some ability. There's no team that I'm like, man, they are just awful. But there is also no team that I'm sitting here going, man, they're going to run away with it. And, there's no Dodgers. There's not even a Padres in there. Who do you got, Isaiah? Who do you have in the top here?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is just going to – I mean, they sent 4 teams to the playoffs last year, and, I think that kind of just goes to show that, it's just kind of a mess. Good teams, they're all, I think there's good teams at the top. I just don't think they're at that level where they could be competitive and make it deep into the playoffs. Whoever in this – I just don't think they're going to make a lot of noise, whoever wins this. I think they're just going to beat up on each other. But I did pick the Brewers to win.
Okay.
Maybe my head's just stuck a couple years in the past, but I just I don't know. Looking on paper, I kind of just compared a little bit. I didn't look at it for 35 minutes, but they just seem to have the best roster out of all these. And that's not saying a lot. That's not saying man, they're competitive with the Dodgers or with a different some of these other top tier teams. But it just seems like the Brewers have the best chance to be consistently a step ahead of everyone else.
Sure.
Yeah, Dan Vogelbach has been pretty good this spring, and then obviously there's plenty of memes going on around him this dude's jacked. What did you take? Should we ask him to pee in 7 cups and see what comes back here?
Yes.
But,
yeah.
I mean, they get Lorenzo Cain back, and that's a nice little thing for them. I think Lorenzo Cain took last year off because he had a premature infant or whatever, and due to COVID, he didn't want to take any chances. Yelich has to be the player that he was 2 years ago and before for them to have promising success. I like Keston Herrera a lot.
Yep.
I think he'll probably be batting somewhere in cleanup or 5. And I like him a lot. I got him in my MLB The Show fantasy roster, and he's done some good things. And then Colton Wong is a pretty reliable, long-time second man, leadoff man for a lot of teams, and Jackie Bradley's been there a while. Brandon Woodruff and Corbin Burns are both guys that have potential to if they both break out and have potential Cy Young years, I think it's a shoo-in that Milwaukee can win this division. I do have the Chicago Cubs winning this division, but finishing 2 games only above the Brewers, who I finished in second. I think if the Cubs don't stay towards the top in their division, though, they're going to lose guys like Zach Davies and Chris Bryant and trade deadlines. And then I think they'll fall off they may even fall under 500 at that point. But if they have any semblance of success, I think between Hap, Contreras, Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, and Jason Hayward's been around forever. I think they could do all right in this division. And I think the lineup's better. I think the pitching has potential to be better for the Brewers. So it could come down to, again, beating each other up in the division a long time. And it's going to be down to the last week of baseball, I think, who's coming out with this division win.
Yeah, I agree. This division is going to be hotly contested. I just don't. So I'm actually going to go a different route than both of you guys. I'm actually going to pick the Cardinals to win the division. I just like what they did this offseason. Obviously, they lost guys like Wong and Dexter Fowler, but I really like their pitching staff. I like Jack Flaherty a lot. I think Miles Michaelis is underrated. Dakota Hudson's pretty good. And obviously then they went out and added Nolan Arenado. And then they obviously still have Paul Goldschmidt, who's MVP caliber hitter. I don't think he's going to win the MVP, but he's got that level of ability at the plate. And if Arenado returns to his pre-2020 form, which, I mean, I don't know how much stock you can put into a lot of these 2020 stats. I mean, I think there's certain guys and certain things that you can put some stock into, especially for young guys, because a lot of those guys got a good chance. But I don't know how much teams are going to start adjusting to some of those young guys that had breakouts, and then it's kind of the cream is going to kind of start rising to the top again. And these guys have consistently been, I like to call them like back of the baseball card guys who just consistently put up numbers. I feel like you're going to see that happening again over a longer season. So,
and I think that's why we're not going to have 4 teams in this division win this year. I think after you have a longer season, your teams are going to get tired. They're just going to have like little slumps. I think I had St. Louis like right around that 500 mark, but I mean, to have 3 teams still in this division with like 82 wins plus, it's not bad. And I really don't even think the Reds are going to be that far off 500 either. So I think the Pittsburgh Pirates are pretty bad. I think they're bottom 2 or 3 in the National League.
Yeah.
But so like I like Brian Hayes, big fan of him. I think he could win NL Rookie of the Year.
Absolutely.
But like other than that, I think it's gonna be a battle between the Cardinals, Brewers, and Cubs.
Yeah, I think the Reds are still the Reds want to be there. They really do. Like they really, and they kind of think they will be, but I mean,
missing a few pieces, man. They got. They're putting Suarez at shortstop.
Yeah, I think the Reds
like not good at shortstop.
I think there will be times throughout the season that the Reds are right there, but I think consistently it's going to be like those 3 teams battling out. Like I think the Reds will like pop their head in, and people like they might win a series against, like they might even sweep one of these other teams, catch them like right after they played, like catch the Brewers right after they played a tough series with the Cubs, and like just win 3 in a row against the Brewers, and everyone's like, oh no, they're like kind of coming in. But I don't think it'll be like last year.
Long-term season. Long-term season, the Reds are going to be streaky. They're going to have weeks where they're winning 6 in a row. Then they might have like an 8-loss streak. I just feel like the Reds always have, in the last couple of years, I feel like they just hit crazy streaks.
Yeah, I mean,
Reds have key pieces like Luis Castillo is in it. I like Michael Lorenzen to possibly pop his head in to win this roster. I
like Sonny Gray.
Yes, yeah, Sonny Gray's good. Wade Miley's been there for a while too, and then you have Castellanos, Votto, Moustakas, guys that have just been in for too long. So they're just about past their prime now, but they can still contribute. I don't see that lasting a full season though to keep up with some of the other talent these other teams in the NL Central have.
Yeah, I would say like the best case scenario for the Reds is that they're pushing for a possible wild card contention at the end of the year. I don't think they're going to be pushing for the division. So what they have to hope is that one of these teams up they can overpass one of the other 3 teams. So like I would see the team that's most vulnerable in this division is the Cubs. For the same reasons kind of Joel pointed out, that like they're almost at the point where it's time to go full rebuild. They're not really they're maybe in their last year of a chance to push for make a playoff run. And
their roster reminds me a lot of like when the Tigers paid all out to get Prince Fielder and like David Price and like Anibal Sanchez, and they went all in to try to put those final pieces to get like Illich's last win before he passed, basically.
Yeah, they're trying to piece it together with pieces of the past, and then maybe going out and making but you don't have the ability to. I mean, you got to realize that your time is gone. And I think if there's going to be a team that falls right off the cliff here, it'd be them. I think the Pirates are going to be bad, and I still think they'll probably finish below the Pirates, but I would actually probably pick the Cubs 4th in this division right now.
Well,
but it's not going to be like by a ton. I think those top 4 teams are going to be way better than the Pirates. And then it just kind of depends, because I do think the Cubs are going to be sellers come trade deadline, just because I think they're going to kind of look at it and say, look, we're kind of out of it. We don't have the horses this year. So,
well, and I think at least I don't follow, especially like the transactional side of baseball that much, but like it seems like the Cubs will do that too.
Yeah,
like, they seem to be a team that will unload if they get some good deals. Like they don't seem like their management and their front office is going to like hold on. Maybe some guys, like there's always those couple guys that you don't expect that a team's just going to hold on to. But it seems like the Cubs, if they find themselves kind of in a bad spot that they'll be like, all right, like time to do this. Like,
yep.
Yeah,
well,
at least from what I've seen.
You have to, because you look at a team like, okay, the Tigers have been stuck in this mediocrity for so long, and it's part of the reason is because they did things like Joel talked about. Like they thought they maybe still had a window, but you got to know when your time's up.
Got to know when to hold them, when to fold them.
Exactly. When, hey, maybe we can just be okay for a couple of years. You don't need to be as bad as like the Tigers have become if you just unload early.
Right. Yeah. Don't, whatever the Tigers have done, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
We'll know at the trade deadline. We'll know at the trade deadline what happens with the Cubs. They could finish fourth, or they could finish second or first.
Yeah, they easily could. So they have the biggest fluctuation, like highest, the biggest difference between ceiling and floor, in my opinion.
For sure.
So let's go to the National League East. Let's see, Joel, what do you think here?
I think this is going to be. There's two teams in this division that could fight it out into the end, but I think the Braves just long term. I think they've got a piece in every position. They've got like three starters that I'm okay with. Like Fried, Ian Anderson is a potential rookie of the year. Soroka's been there a while. Charlie Morton's no scrub.
Yep.
And Will Smith is a solid closer. I mean, but then you get like Acuna, Albies, Freeman is like, I think I put Freeman as number 3 or 4 in the player rankings last week.
Yep.
And then Ozuna, Swanson, Pache could be another rookie of the year for them. So I think they don't only have like veteran talent. They've got potential rookie talent, even in their farm system that like, if they need to go to that, I think they're pretty much ready and willing if need be.
Yeah. Isaiah?
Sorry, I was looking at something totally different. Where are we at?
We're talking about the NL East. I just
NL East. Okay. Yeah. So NL East, I have the Braves. I just think they have, I just think they have the talent, and they're better than I know this is a stupid thing to say, but like they're just better than the other teams. Like it's kind of simple. Like, I mean, there could be some competition there, but just they seem to just be. Yeah. But like it's the Mets, man. They can't have nice things. Like you don't pick the Mets to be successful.
No. So I look at it as it's the Braves division to lose still, in my opinion. The Mets went out and made some big splashes this past offseason. Adding Lindor is huge. He's
James McCann's the big move.
James McCann, I mean, shoot, if he still plays like an all-star, then they've got a chance there. Carlos Carrasco is a great right-handed pitcher. They still have Marcus Stroman and Noah Syndergaard, so they're going to have a good rotation. But they seem to always get hurt. Like, it's kind of stupid. Edwin Diaz was really good a couple years ago, and now he's going to be at the back end of the rotation. And if he goes back to his 2019 self, I mean, the dude blew like 14 saves that year. So I could see the Mets finishing as low as 4th place. Like I really could, because that's just kind of what they do. However, I agree. It's probably the Braves division to lose. I don't love the Braves bullpen though. I really don't. They lost Mark Melancon and Shane Green, who are both pretty good arms.
Minter and Tomlin are okay. Chris Martin, but I think Will Smith I think he's reliable enough at least.
This is reliable, but again, you don't sit there. What you want out of a division winning team is you want a bullpen that just stands out. And right now, especially with the way the game's gone, with teams shortening games, obviously their starting rotation is impressive. I like Fried a lot. I like Soroka. He's solid. Ian Anderson was great last year. I think, we'll see how he does when teams start adjusting to what he's got, because he came out on late last year. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens if teams start making adjustments. But they are the best team. The Mets can push them though, but I'm and kind of along with Isaiah, they've yet to show anything to tell me that they could really push for that division. The Nationals are kind of an interesting team. Steven Strasburg can't stay healthy. So there's a problem for them. Juan Soto has a chance to possibly push for NL MVP. So, the talent is there in certain spots. Victor Robles is good. I love Trey Turner.
Starlin Castro and Schwarber past their prime.
they added Schwarber as a good bat, but I don't. Schwarber needs to just go to the AL and be a DH. He'd extend his career if he does that.
Maybe Josh Bell can hit 30 home runs. There's best case scenarios there. I mean,
Josh Bell. I look at Josh Bell and he's a 220 hitter who might be able to hit 30 home runs. I'm not all that over impressed with him.
I do like their rotation. I mean, Scherzer, Corbin's pretty good. If Strasburg's healthy, then you have Lester, who's also way past his prime. But then Joe Ross is there as insurance. I mean, they've got decent guys there. Brad Hand is a good closer, but pretty much.
Which is why I would say they're definitely in third here, and they could push up towards second place, just because I don't. If their rotation stays healthy, which it probably won't, because Strasburg's hurt every year, and if they get a great year out of Trey Turner, if they get a great year out of Robles, and then Juan Soto, if Juan Soto is the NL MVP, then you got a chance. Because it's got a guy that's just going to carry you like that. I feel like you got a chance to be right there. But I don't.
I have a side thought because you brought it up with Edwin Diaz, and I don't want to get totally off track with it. But Edwin Diaz was good 2 years ago, and then he was a scrub, and now he's got to get back to his form. But we noticed that now with the Tigers closer, Joe Jimenez, was an all-star 2 or 3 years ago, and he didn't even make the final roster. Yeah. So is that thing a thing with some closers that look like they have the stuff, have some really good years, and the next thing you know, they have 5+ ERAs, and they're.
So it's a thing with relievers, in my opinion. It's just these guys go all out. So their idea is, look, I got to get 3 outs, so I'm putting everything I possibly can into these 3 outs, right? Or maybe 6 outs, or it kind of depends on what role they're in. But you look at countless examples of this happening. Kelvin Herrera is a perfect example.
Oh, yeah.
He just retired because he's no good anymore. And think about how good he was for 2, maybe 3 straight years with the Royals when they had that crazy bullpen. Even what's his name? Wade Davis. He's not what he was with the Royals. There's countless examples. Which is why this can be a topic for discussion some other time. Which is why I don't like giving long-term contracts to relievers. But that's a different discussion.
I was going to say, not only that, are they throwing 100 to get 3 outs? And sometimes you might have to throw 130 pitches in an inning.
Yeah, and you're just going to get hurt.
It's also it's a major head game, and if you lose that head game, you give up that walk-off home run. That can stick with you. It's basically
you see it spiral out of control for some guys when they just completely lose whatever it was that made them good. Which a lot of times for those guys late in the game, they're a little crazy. So they have to have that edge, and if they lose that edge, it's not going to work out.
To me, they remind me of a kicker, obviously, in the NFL. You miss a kick, it can stick in your head, or you can come back and hit the next one. And, some closers have the stuff, some kickers have the stuff, but, it's a huge psychological thing because you can single-handedly feel like you lost that game.
Yeah, for sure. Do we have any thoughts on the Phillies?
They look good this spring. They did all right. I know the Tigers played them way too much this spring. That's why I probably have seen so much. But, Bryce Harper is going to – maybe if he can get back to his old form, doesn't play like he has a hole in his swing. McCutcheon's been around for years. JT Realmuto is probably the best catcher, one of the best catchers, top 3 catcher in the majors. Alex Bohm is another rookie that could continue it. Gregorius has been around for a while, but I don't really like their rotation other than Nola. Wheeler's okay. And then their bullpen, I think they're going to have to be bullpen closer by committee. So I don't really like that kind of reliability either.
Sure. And then, Isaiah, do you have any thoughts?
About the Phillies, not really.
About the Marlins, though?
The Marlins, though. Derek Jeter.
6-0.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're clearly the bottom 2. There's a few. I like some of the Marlins' arms. Alcantara is good.
6-0.
6-0 Sanchez, I think, is going to be a really good pitcher down, this year, probably starting.
I like Jazz Chisholm.
Yeah, Jazz Chisholm's okay. I'm not a huge fan of him. Lewis Brinson has a chance to be good, but they're clearly below those top 2 teams, and I don't really think they're gonna even put too much of a scare in these other teams. So the Marlins are probably still 4 years away from even remotely thinking about pushing. So
I was going to say the Pirates and the Rockies and the Marlins probably have a top 5 pick in next year's draft.
I'd agree.
So,
all right, we're going to go over to the American League here. American League West. Let's look at Isaiah. What do you think about the American League West?
With the American League West. Sorry.
This is going to be an interesting division.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. The Astros are always intriguing, but I feel like God's still looking down upon them with disgust. So I just think I'm just going to go with the A's. I just think they're God's not looking on them with disgust. They're just a little bit better team. They made some noise last year. They were kind of everyone's favorite team for a second, them and the Padres. So yeah, I just think they have the best chance to win the division and be the dominant team in that division.
You're going with the Athletics, huh?
Yeah.
I'm picking the Angels. And then I've got the Astros number 2 and then the A's number 3.
Angels, nope. But okay. There's an argument to be made.
I get it. But to me, they're like the Cubs of the AL. They have a ceiling and they have a floor, and I think there's a pretty big disparity in there. So I don't know, man. I watched way too much of Ohtani, I think, this spring, and Ohtani's never what he's projected to be. But I'm crossing my fingers for something different this year. Mike Trout, Rendon, Iglesias, Upton, Pujols is actually probably 64 years old, so I don't know what we're gonna get from Pujols. But then Dexter Fowler, woohoo. I mean, and then Bundy's probably their number 1 guy. Ohtani's going to be in there, but I really think he's probably actually their 4th best pitcher. So I don't really know what to expect. I think Griffin Canning will make an impact towards the end of the season. Replace, I don't know, whether it's Quintana or Heaney or Cobb. I think he replaces one of those guys in the rotation. Maybe kind of keeps him afloat. So again, high ceiling, very low floor. And I think I stuck with their ceiling for their record prediction. I gave them a 92-70. And I don't think they're going to get much more than that as a ceiling, but I think they definitely could stoop all the way to a 75 and 82 or an 87 or something.
Yeah. So I mean, the argument can be made for the Angels just because there is talent there. They obviously have the best player in baseball plays for them, so you can't really count them out.
Yeah.
And Ohtani has, there's the allure there of the guy who can pitch and hit, and I just don't see. I mean, until the guy can stay healthy, I really just don't see. I'm not going to pick him to have a breakout until he can show me that he can be healthy enough. They added Jose Quintana, and Alex Cobb. Those are both relatively reliable arms. Jose Iglesias is going to make sure they play some pretty good defense. But what is he going to provide at the plate? It's kind of hit or miss sometimes. He'll probably be just similar to an Andrelton Simmons, who he was basically replacing. So obviously, if guys like Ohtani and obviously Trout, you're probably going to go through Trout, and Andrew Heaney and Griffin Canning, if those guys all perform to their peak, I mean, I could see them winning 90 plus. I just really don't see it happening. I agree. They have a high ceiling, but a very low floor. And I think the safer picks are probably the A's and the Astros, but I'm actually going to go with Isaiah here and pick the A's. I think that Matt Chapman was probably hurt the entire year last year and just fought through it until he said he couldn't anymore. I think that they have a pretty strong pitching staff. Jesus Luzardo was good. I like Trevor Rosenthal. I didn't think I'd ever say this out of the pen, but now he's kind of reinvented himself and figured it out. I like
Bassett's a good arm too.
Bassett's a good arm. I like what they bring to the table there. They play in a weird. They just play weird, man. They just, Matt Olson, I think has a good chance to have another breakout. They added Mitch Moreland. Elvis Andrews, I guess, could.
We love the fire that Ramon Laureano brings.
Yeah, Ramon Laureano is athletic. He's fun to watch. They did lose a good amount, though. I mean, their bullpen obviously took a hit. Liam Hendricks, who was arguably the best closer in baseball the last couple of years, is gone. Marcus Simeon's gone. Chris Davis is gone. So they lost some. But I don't want to pick the Astros out of spite. And I mean, the Astros, they're an interesting team. They finished below 500 last year, and obviously they made a playoff push. But they lost George Springer. They lost Josh Reddick. Their additions weren't amazing. Jake Odorizzi does not move the needle for me.
But they get Yordan Alvarez back this year.
They do get Yordan Alvarez. He's good, but he's a DH. Whatever.
He's going to hit 55 this year, man. 55.
He might. Dusty Baker is 99 years old, and he's their manager. So, and their problem is Altuve and Bregman and Correa had terrible 2020s, really. Other than the playoffs, like they were horrendous during the season. That helps when there's not somebody signaling what pitch is coming. So,
the spite is definitely still there. I can feel it.
So, talent-wise, I think they do kind of reign much. They're the best team from a talent perspective. However, I just think that the A's are gonna fight them tooth and claw, and I think it'll be close. But I do think the A's finish on top. The other teams in this division, we can't talk about three. The Mariners, I don't really think they have a chance. They've got some good young guys, but like Taylor Trammell and Kyle Lewis.
I like Haniger.
Yeah, Haniger's good. James Paxton is a good lefty. But
Seager's been there for years.
Yeah, but like D Gordon's gone.
I like Justice Sheffield too, but maybe it's the name. And I played with him in MLB The Show and made him really good. So I don't know. This is all like my show rosters are popping in my head. So like, I think that's throwing me off.
Yeah, and then you go all the way down to the Rangers. I think they're going to be pretty terrible. The pitching staff isn't good. Fultonowicz was good a few years ago, but he's Dane Dunning will probably end up in the rotation for him because he showed enough from the White Sox last year, but he's going to struggle at times. They lost Lance Lynn. Josh Young, I think, is going to be good. I remember watching him play for Texas Tech. I think he'll be really good eventually. But they're relying a lot on Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo's a 220 hitter. And
they don't even have Rougned Odor anymore, man.
Yeah, he retired, I think.
Well, they cut him like 2 days ago. I was like,
and then I think he just said, "I'm not going to play anymore."
Maybe Fultonevich will keep him. No, I don't think so. This team's bad. I think they touch 100 losses. There's a chance they touch 100 losses this year.
I would agree. So I think it's a clear-cut top two there. Let's go on to the AL Central.
Ooh, we like the Central here. Isaiah. Tigers. Pick the Tigers.
Don't pick the Tigers.
I'm not going to pick the Tigers. I'm going to pick Ben's White Sox.
Do it for the podcast. Pick the Tigers.
No.
Yeah, the White Sox just seem to have talent at everywhere you need it. They have some good vets, but some good young guys. They just and a lot of people that are I think what always in a competitive division as the AL Central just kind of has been for seemingly ever. What puts teams above in situations like that is when they have a good team and good players who have been there a few years, have been around the league. But when you got some young, intriguing players and some rookie of the year candidates and some guys who could just all they're going to do is add to the team's success. That's when I think a team is poised to step above everyone else. So the White Sox just seem poised to do that. They have the young guys like Andrew Vaughn. See, I know some names.
Hey.
Just to kind of push them above that. Yeah, like I said, just the past few years, they just the slugfest that's been the Central. And the White Sox, they're finally a part of the slugfest, but now I think they kind of bump above it.
Yeah, I am going to go with the White Sox too. Obviously, not because I'm a fan or anything, because it hurts to say it sometimes. Yeah. But we talked about even earlier when we were talking about other divisions, they took care. Their front office handled this situation very well. They loaded up on prospects that have all blossomed, like Moncada and Eloy Jimenez was another one that came out. Tim Anderson was a great player, and I think all those guys kind of came around the same time, and that was right when the White Sox knew we don't have a chance in this division. Let's try to stock up in the farm system, and then maybe these guys blow up for us with the remaining solid players they still had. So they swapped them at the right time, whereas I think the Tigers probably held on for maybe 2 years too long. So I think because of that, the White Sox have a lineup that's stacked with strong veterans and leadership presence. And, you know, they get Tommy Lasorda back this year. That's GOAT right there.
Russa, not Tommy Lasorda.
Why did I say Lasorda? Holy shit.
Lasorda is
he's dead now.
I was going to say, he's back?
Yeah, he's back from the dead. Just to get the White Sox
him back.
I would rather have Tommy Lasorda. I'm not
right. He's goated for sure. But like La Russa's a primed coach too. He's been out for a little while, but like he's definitely been known when he was with the Cardinals as one of the greatest managers in the league. But like you said, Isaiah, you called out Andrew Vaughn as like a future star, and like he's potential AL rookie. But then even Nick Madrigal is potential AL rookie, and all these guys are going to get a chance. People will talk about who's the most exciting player on this roster. Like Tim Anderson could be in that conversation for like batting title or MVP. And then you have Luis Robert, who's good too. Yasmani Grandal is one of the best catchers. Like this team looks good even without Eloy Jimenez for the first 4 to 6 months. And I think that obviously that gives Andrew Vaughn a little bit more opportunity to get right into it. Like I was talking to Ben, like he would probably DH'd quite a bit anyway, but he's probably going to start out in left field now instead of Jimenez being there. But then you got Giolito, a guy that could touch 20 wins this year. Keuchel's been doing it for a long time pretty well. And like Rodon and Lynn and Cease. And then like we talked about with the A's, they may have lost Liam Hendricks, but he's one of the best closers that's now in the White Sox. So they've retooled, rebuilt from the last 3 or 4 years. And I think they're dead set on making an AL pennant this year. They're going to have to fight probably the Yankees, and we'll talk about them soon. But the only other threat I see in this division is the Minnesota Twins, and I actually have the Twins only finishing a game behind them. I don't want to say Eloy Jimenez makes the difference, but I think I probably would have given – if you go give them like a war of 3 or something, maybe that puts them at like 98 wins, and maybe the Twins down to like 93 or 92. But like the Twins have a lot of firepower too. They've got guys that can hit home runs. There's more power, I think, on the Twins than a lot of other MLB teams. Mm-hmm. Like Donaldson can drill, Cruz can drill, Sano can drill. Polanco's got some power. Then they got speed with Buxton. Kepler's pretty quick. But then Kenta Maeda, Jose Barrios, those guys are all potential Cy Young candidates in the AL. Pineda has been there for a while. Taylor Rogers and Alex Colomé, pending on like a left-handed or right-handed matchup, they've got 2 set closers that can take care of business. So I like the Twins a lot too. I don't think people always like to say the Indians are going to be in that conversation. And I think the Indians are going to be like right around 85 wins. I just don't think – I think that's going to still have them about 10 games out on these guys. So, as far as the Tigers, I'd love to talk about the Tigers because they're my team and I'm sticking with them. But I think it's going to be – I'm rooting for a 70-win season. I don't think they're going to get quite there yet. By next year, if they haven't broke 75 wins, they're doing the rebuild wrong or their players are missing. So, I don't know. I was pretty okay with most of the roster decisions. I know they cut Renato Nunez, who I like the pop in his bat, so I'm a little disappointed they kept Harold Castro over him, which means now they have like 3 guys in the roster that can play 9 positions. I don't think we need that kind of utility. We don't need all the Don Kellys in the world. So I would have kept Nunez over Castro, but other than that, I think most of their decisions have been okay. I like AJ Hinch as a manager, despite obviously he was with the Astros, but I think he's a good manager, and I think he can help put this team back on track where it needs to be again. Yeah. So I've got hope, but like I don't think they're going to be. I'm like I said, hoping for a 71 season this year. I just don't know if they're going to touch it. I like some of the pieces they've got here though.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, I'm a White Sox fan, but I am going to pick the White Sox to win the division.
Homer!
So they could push 100 wins. I would have definitely said they could push 100 wins before the Jimenez injury. With the Jimenez injury, it just puts a little bit more pressure on a guy like Andrew Vaughn and a guy like Luis Robert, who, was amazing for all but the last 2 weeks of the year last year. And then he struggled last 2 weeks of the year and really fell off. And they had a pretty good playoff series against the A's. So, it's going to put a little bit more pressure on those guys because Jimenez had established himself as he was going to hit 280, probably hit 30 home runs, driving 100, and or maybe better. and I think Jimenez was gearing up for a breakout year at the plate. And so that's a thing that's a little concerning there. The pitching staff, from a starter's perspective, obviously I think Giolito could push AL Cy Young. He's definitely a candidate there. Beyond that, I think Keuchel's solid. I think Lance Lynn is solid. They're both going to eat innings. You know what you're going to get from them. But you really, I would expect them, if they're in contention, to possibly consider adding an arm, at the deadline. I would hope they're in contention, but to adding an arm at the deadline, depending on what's available. Just because you get past them, Carlos Rodon's going to be their fifth starter, and Dylan Cease will probably be slotted into the fourth. I think Cease will actually end up being our third best pitcher. That's what I would put it at. I think his stuff's as good as anybody in the rotation, but it's just he's inconsistent. So I think he kind of starts to put it together a little bit better this year. But Rodon's been hurt. Lynn's old. Keuchel's old. So the rotation's the only thing that really scares me, because I think the bullpen could be the best in baseball. You're gonna obviously, you have Hendricks in the back end at closer, but then you put Garrett Crochet back there, who was crazy good as a rookie last year. Michael Kopech's going to be in the bullpen for part of the year this year, and then he's actually going to make some spot starts as we go along. So he might end up being in the rotation as well. Evan Marshall's been great. Matt Foster was really good last year. I mean, they've got arms for days in the pen. So Cordy Hoyer, he was great. So I think ceiling, they're over 100 wins, and they're definitely a World Series contender, and that's probably in the ceiling. Worst case scenario, I think they finish second behind the Twins. I think they probably still snag a wild card spot. I think they're talented enough that worst case scenario they still get in. But what's going to happen is, now they're an injury away from a guy like a Tim Anderson or Luis Robert from being in trouble with Eloy going down. Just because then the lineup is just good, not great. Because with Eloy in there, I think they would push the Yankees for best lineup in baseball. Push the Yankees in without him. They're going to need a breakout year from like a Vaughn, or like an MVP type year from like a Robert to be that good. So the crazy thing about this roster is, kind of like Joel said, I mean, they have the AL MVP on their roster from last year, and we have yet to even mention him.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't even mention Jose Abreu.
We did not even say a word about Jose Abreu, and he was the AL MVP last year. So, it's pretty crazy.
He's 33 now, right? Like he's past his prime. It's going to be a 162 game season. Could be hard on him, but he's just going to drive. He's going to drive in 120 runs. I mean, with that team, he's just an RBI machine, and he's their best hitter, in my opinion. Still,
I think he'll start to show his age a bit, but like he'll definitely, like, with the talent around him, he's going to contribute.
Yeah,
like, I don't want to say easily, because it's never easy, but like he's just going to like be there. Like, cleaning up a lot of messes and just being like, I mean, part of the reason he won the MVP, like just being savvy, just be like, he just knows kind of what to do situationally. And it's really important to have a guy like that on your team when you got a lot of young firepower, like just to have some guy come in and just be like, oh, I know what to do in this situation. Like, you don't have to worry about me playing hero ball. You don't have to worry about me doing this or that. Like, I just know exactly what I need to do right now.
I'd agree.
We didn't say much about the Royals. They did add a couple pieces like Benintendi. They have Carlos Santana now too at DH. And like Brad Keller as well. So they added some pieces. Do they still fight for third place with the Indians, or is it pretty set that it's probably White Sox, Twins, Indians, Royals, Tigers?
So I mean, I could actually see if the Indians get some crazy performances out of their pitching staff, because I mean, Shane Bieber was AL Cy Young. He might be. I mean, he could win the Cy Young again. And they've. I like McKenzie in the rotation. I think
Plesac's an up and comer.
Yeah, Plesac's good. Savali's not bad, especially at a latter half of your rotation. So I could see them, their pitching carrying them to maybe a better than what we expect season. But their offense just isn't good. So it's going to be a problem there. The Royals, yeah, I mean,
it's got some pop. They've got some pop in the bats too. Because
Whit Merrifield's good, but what I would expect to happen, this is what I expect to happen. I would say the Royals are going to, they're going to win some games against the White Sox that just anger the crap out of me. Just because it's just like, why? Like, what the heck? But they're still going to be in a situation where they're going to trade a guy like Whit Merrifield at the deadline, because that's going to give them a ton of prospects, right? For a guy like that. So that they're gonna end up in that position, in my opinion, because they're not gonna. I still see them as a step below those other three for sure. And
I really like the first 7 of 9 hitters in this potential lineup, though. I mean,
that guy's good.
Alberto Mondesi is also he's gonna be really good. They got Benintendi, and he's got a good history. Carlos Santana's obviously been around forever, so he can't do anything more than DH anymore. But
no,
Perez, great catcher. Soler could hit 50.
Yep.
And Dozier has been around for a minute too. So I like those guys, but their pitching is not going to be able to compete in the Central at all.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then yes, I mean I can throw a Tigers thing in. They're not going to be good, and I'm not going to just crap on them because I like some of their younger guys, but I don't think they, what do they? Their young guys are all pitchers that are going to make any kind of impact this year, other than maybe you could see a few of the young outfield prospects come up eventually, but I really think they're probably going to. They could lose 100 games. I could see it being a little better than that. I would say at best they're probably a 70, maybe 75 win team. That's at best.
Yeah,
that's if Casey Mize figures it out. Skubal continues to build on a pretty good spring, and then they get a few other contributors.
It's going to be the closer. They got rid of Jimenez, so I don't know who they're going to try to. Probably Brian Garcia. They'll try there. Gregory Soto might be like the lefty.
They've got a few good arms in the pen.
Derek Holland really was helpful this spring, and so he made the team on a really good performance in the spring, and he's got a good history with the Royals. So I like Derek Holland too. There as a lefty. Willie Castro, much more impressive than a lot of people expected. Their shortstop.
So the Tigers kind of remind me of the White Sox like 5 years ago, where it's just like they have to. You're just waiting.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, I was gonna say the same.
You have to like. You're just adding these veterans that aren't any good, or maybe they used to be good. So you're really just hoping that they kind of push you through to the second half of the year, and then you can either dump them or no longer play them and bring all your young guys up and hope you see something out of them, because you can't bring all the young guys up right away because they're just gonna get just wrecked. I mean, they're just not going to perform well, and it's not worth it to them, right? Mm-hmm. There needs to be a steady process on how they get brought up. As much as a fan, you're just going to say, who cares if they suck? You should bring them up, blah, 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 blah. But no,
it kills their confidence, man. I'm worried about Spencer Torkelson in the spring going one. I was worried about Torkelson going 1 for 26 in the spring. Like, that's not good.
Everybody's like, you got to bring Torkelson up now. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you can leave him down for 2 more years. And
right.
So it's, unless you're ready to compete, and there's a guy down there that can actually add something to a good team already, there's no reason to rush a guy. Mm-hmm. And I think they're in the right mindset right now of just like, hey, they already brought up Mize and Skubal, just leave those guys up. Eventually, probably bring Manning up because it's probably his time, and then just go from there. And because I don't see, there's no point in rushing any of these guys at this point because they're not.
We've been bad for like the last 3 or 4 years now. It's another year. I don't care. I want to make sure this is set, and I want them to have a chance to run for a pennant in the next 3 or 4 years.
Well, AJ Hinch made some comments. He was like, sort of backhanded comments to where he was like, the development in this organization the past 3 years kind of sucked. So he essentially made those comments because they dumped some guys that were, quote unquote, ready to break out, and they got rid of them. And he's like, they're like, oh, why did you do this? And he's like, well, they're actually not that good.
Well, they also didn't get rid of Fulmer.
Let me tell you something.
Fulmer and Boyd were in a place to be traded pretty well too, and they kept them for too long.
Sure. And that's the problem is the Tigers just did not capitalize in certain situations. They thought they thought they were better than they were is really what it was.
Right.
You can't do that. You got to be forward thinking as an organization, and you got to understand that typically windows are only 4, maybe 5 years in baseball, unless you're the New York Yankees, which leads me into segue into the American League East.
Boom, great segue.
Yeah.
Well, and that leads me into a segue to say that I think the New York Yankees are going to win the
AL pennant,
because I just the Rays did some incredible stuff last year, but in a full season, the Yankees with every piece that they have, really injuries, and they don't have injuries is really the only thing that's going to damper the Yankees. I don't think it's going to be competition in the division.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Yankees are good top to bottom. I mean, DJ LeMahieu gets better every year, it seems like. Judge, if he's just back to what he was 2 years ago, he's kind of taking a little bit of a downhill after his awesome rookie year.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's still got a guy that can hit 40 anybody can hit 40 home runs if they play in Yankee Stadium every week.
True.
But then I mean, Aaron Hicks is probably their weak point center fielder, right? I mean, Aaron Hicks isn't even that bad. He's probably the worst player on that lineup. Gary Sanchez, good catcher. Urshela, Clint Frazier, Gleyber Torres, Luke Voigt, Giancarlo Stanton. And then the rotation of Garrett Cole, Kluber, Severino, Jameson Taillon, and Davey Garcia, Domingo Germán, and Jordan Montgomery. They've got guys they can go to, even with a couple Tommy Johns. They've got other guys they could pull up. So Aroldis Chapman is the hardest throwing closer in baseball.
Yeah. So my thoughts on the Yankees are, I don't like the Yankees at all.
Who does though?
Does anyone?
True. But my thoughts on the Yankees are, I don't love their rotation, but I think their lineup is going to carry them to a division win anyway. I mean, their rotation's fine, but I think Kluber's past his prime. Taillon hasn't been able to stay healthy. They lost Tanaka. They lost James Paxton. J.A. Happ is no longer there. They don't have, that frontline starter that's just for some reason the Yankees never seem to be able to get that. Obviously, Garrett Cole is obviously just a monster. But at the same time, beyond him, I'm not sitting there going, okay, top to bottom, this rotation worries me. Cole, yeah, he's tough. But even
they have to hope that Kluber is some semblance of what he was 3 or 4 years ago. That's what they have to hope.
Yep.
Well, and I think part of the thing is, and when you just have this good of a lineup is how good do you need your pitchers to be? If you're cranking in 8 runs, do you really need a shutdown pitcher? Can you just kind of throw some of these guys out there? But when the bats go cold, are they going to be able to make up for it? And we saw that not kind of obviously again, last season's a weird season, but we saw that happen last season, and we've seen that happen with the Yankees, especially in certain series, when they those series against the Boston Red Sox a few years in a row, they had all this talent and then their bats would just go cold. Things would just happen, and then all of a sudden just are these the Yankees? Are these the Yankees everyone's been talking about?
The thing, their lineup top to bottom is probably the best in baseball. I'd probably put them best right now.
For sure.
There's a few teams that can argue, the Dodgers, White Sox, but I don't see another team winning this division. Yeah, the Rays caught magic in a bottle, caught lightning in a bottle last year, but I agree with what Isaiah was saying. I think the Rays were the team that benefited most from a 60-game season. They got hot at the perfect time.
Yep.
And a guy like Randy Arozarena, nobody was able to to really adjust to him just because he kind of just came onto the scene right at the end and dominated, and that's great, good for him. But I'm not, I think he's a pretty good player. I'm not expecting an MLB MVP season and just a monster year from him. The Rays also lost Blake Snell, Charlie Morton, Hunter Renfroe's gone. They added Chris Archer's there. Rich Hill somehow on the roster. He's got to be 95. There's no way he makes it through the season.
Glasnow is a potential Cy Young, though.
Glasnow is a beast. Rich Hill, I'm just going to say this right now. Rich Hill does not make it through the season.
No, I mean he's getting something hurt.
He didn't even make it through last year with the Twins.
His arthritis might kick in. I don't know, man. He's
no
storms are brewing.
No.
Yeah, and I just think with what the Rays did last year, which was impressive in a lot of ways and in a lot of categories, but it's like if you do that in this season, that's just June, that's exactly. You got hot in the summer, and it's how does that translate? Because they just got hot at the right time, but we always see teams get hot in the middle of the year and after 60 games, and we're like, wow, and then by 160 games, it's oh, why did we ever think that would be a thing? And they definitely have talent. They definitely didn't it wasn't a total fluke that they just didn't deserve to be where they were, but just to think that they're going to keep up what they tried to keep up for 162 games, I just don't see it, especially with them playing the Yankees so often and playing some of these other teams so often during the season.
The thing with the Rays is too, they try to do it in this backward, this non-traditional way every year. Kevin Cash is weird with his openers and things like that. They just try to do it so differently than every team. That's not going to work for 162 games. It's just not. Maybe I'll eat my words, whatever, but I just don't see it consistently working for a full season. I actually think that the Blue Jays are going to end up coming in second place here.
That's why I have, yeah.
So just because of their additions, I thought they had a great offseason. They added Marcus Semien, George Springer. I think Steven Matz could be a pretty good pitcher for them, especially if he's slated into the last half of the rotation. Ross Stripling's decent. Robbie Ray is going to be a good lefty. They're going to have some good left-handed pitchers there. And I love, obviously, their young stars. Bo Bichette's really good. Guerrero's a monster.
Biggio, man, Gurriel, Teoscar.
Their infield is good and young.
Yeah.
So I really think that they have a chance. They're probably going to lose some high-scoring games because their pitching rotation is not amazing after Ryu.
Even their bullpen after Kirby Yates and Jordan Romano, that's pretty rough too.
Yeah, and the fact that you're saying Kirby Yates and Jordan Romano first is the biggest problem. I mean, they're good. They're pretty good, but they're not.
I was gonna say they're not top 25. I don't know.
No. So their bullpen is weak.
Give me some Rowdy Tellez though. Maybe Rowdy hits 35 home runs.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
that guy's a fatty.
He's large.
And I think if you look at not to just go back to it, but if you look at the Rays with how the season ended with the whole Blake Snell thing, that we talk about sending guys up too early, in the case of the Tigers, and then losing their confidence, those kind of decisions and everything that happened with them, even if they and especially in today's age, even if the manager and the player kind of make amends, just all the media coverage around it that keeps bringing it up and Blake Snell's never going to hear the end of that, and that their coach is never going to hear the end of that, or manager, I guess. That weighs on a team, and that makes things weird, and that makes things possibly
Well, there was nobody happy with that way that
right. And I'm not saying they just
Obviously Snell's gone, but there is something to it where hey, if Cash now every decision Cash makes in a big time game like that, or any decision he makes late in the game to pull pitcher is going to be compared to Blake Snell. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and why I say Blake Snell's still going to ask about it because like I said, in today's age, that if he speaks out against that decision during the season or something, Cash hears about it. He hears about it the next day. Even though this Snell's off on another team and not in the same locker room, he's just going to hear about it when he's getting asked the questions and when Snell's getting asked the questions and when other people are getting asked the questions. It's just when you do stuff like that, it's just not. It doesn't bode well for your next season.
No, and I'm not a big Kevin Cash guy myself. I think
right. And all the analytics stuff that just you just. I love analytics and I like how deep people get into it. I think the baseball gets way too deep into it in my mind. And that you see that with the Rays. If that's just the way Cash is going to be.
Yep.
I don't think you.
Cash watched Moneyball one day and he was like, "This is what I'm doing."
Yep.
Right.
I'm doing this.
I just don't think you keep that up for 162 games and you can do that for 60 games and I guess 60 plus with the postseason, but I think analytics have their place heavily, but like all this also, you just have to have a better team, and you're like, you have to just do like those unwritten things in baseball. Like you don't pull a pitcher who only gave up 1 run in the World Series. Like, you just like that doesn't translate to winning. Like obviously, but
no. I mean, there's a place for analytics, but it needs to come like in the end. Like you need to like make your own decision. You can't just be relying on what the analytics guys or the numbers are telling you. And that's, I think Cash fell into that where he was 100% by the analytics, by, you know, what the charts were saying or whatever. And it hurt him in the end, obviously. And you know what? Probably 90% of the time going by the analytics is the right move. But like in certain situations and in any given game, certain moves, you have to like just look at it in any given, you know, from that single game perspective, not from the wide range perspective.
Well, you need a manager that'll look at the analytics and be like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like he's just got to look up and be like,
no, that's not, no.
Whoever pulls the spreadsheet out is just like, hey, coach, in this situation, you should do this. And he's just like, no, why would I do that?
Exactly. Like in a given situation, you can't.
Yeah.
The Red Sox, I think the Red Sox have one of the lowest ceilings of any team.
Yeah. What happened?
Weird.
Mookie Betts is what happened, dude. That's what
I know, right? Like, is that it? It was just Mookie
That's
Betts?
not it, though, because Chris Sale got hurt.
Yes, Mookie Betts is a 29 WAR.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean they still have pieces like Xander Bogaerts, Verdugo is pretty good. Devers and JD Martinez is going to be a potential comeback player this year.
Yeah.
I like Delbeck as a potential rookie.
Yeah, I was going to say Delbeck's good. Yeah.
And then I don't know, their rotation is what draws concerns though. Eovaldi without Chris Sale's hurt, I think, to start the year, isn't he?
Well, he's not hurt. They're just going to bring him along very slowly.
Okay. Well, Eovaldi's pretty much starting out as their number 1 guy, and then you have Garrett Richards and Eduardo Rodriguez, and I'm like, I don't like any of those guys really as more than like number 4s and maybe 3s on other rosters. And the bullpen's not much better after like Ottavino and Barnes. So I don't know, injuries maybe, but Darwinson. But I don't. Other than that, like they might, just because they have enough firepower still on the offensive standpoint, they might battle with the Rays for third. But I still think the Rays probably. I like the Rays pitching staff more, so I think the Rays get third. I think this division's pretty set though. I think this one I'm the most confident in with like the Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays, Red Sox, and then the bottom was the Orioles.
The Orioles, they could be the worst team in baseball again.
You get Trey Mancini back after cancer.
So he's
going to win AL Comeback Player of the Year if he does anything.
Yes, he's like Alex Smith of baseball this year.
Like if he plays 100 games, he's winning it.
If he plays 25 games, he might.
So we did this. We kind of mentioned this without mentioning it with the Dodgers, saying like their ceiling is the best team in baseball, possibly 120 wins, like pushing into that if they like are just firing. Who do you actually think is going to be the worst team in baseball this year?
I still think it's the Rockies.
The Rockies are going to run into – I think it's the Orioles, because I think the Rockies are going to run into enough wins because they're just going to hit enough home runs in Colorado. So I really do think it'll be Baltimore. But the Rockies they're pretty – the Rockies on paper are probably worse.
That's a good point about like the air in Colorado. We talk about that quite a bit, but and like Charlie Blackmon and Trevor Story are definitely like key pieces in the middle of the lineup to like maybe if they have a combined WAR of even 10, that's probably still going to finish better than the Orioles. But it's going to be between the Orioles and the Rockies just because they're in the same division as the Dodgers and the Yankees, and those guys will probably win almost all of the games against them.
Yeah, so
that's another reason why.
The only other teams I would throw out there.
Well, you can put out the Pirates and the Marlins.
Yeah. So I was gonna say the Pirates and like I hate to beat up the Tigers, but like I only say those.
Everything goes wrong for the Tigers, they could be the worst team in baseball.
The only reason I say those is not necessarily because they have the worst rosters in baseball, but just like their divisions are so competitive.
Yeah.
Like and like they the potential to be very competitive where like especially later in the season, if like people aren't paying attention to the Pirates or the Tigers, and they start to some of their younger guys start contributing. If those other 4 teams, or even 3 of those 4 teams, are competing and fighting tooth and nail for a playoff spot, they're not going to lose a game to the Tigers, and they're not going to lose a game to the Pirates. If the Brewers are 3 games behind the Cubs, they're going to sweep the Pirates. You know what I mean? They're just not going to let it happen. So I think just not necessarily that they're the worst team, but just you saw it last year with the Pirates finishing with less than 20 wins. It wasn't because they were god awful, but their division was just so competitive that those other teams could not afford to lose to the Pirates.
Well, you thought last year with the White Sox, they dominated the Tigers and Royals, just annihilated those.
Yeah.
And they were okay against the Twins and Indians, right? And I think
thanks for rubbing it in, Ben.
You're going to see a little bit of that, I think, this year, but just over an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Not necessarily with the Tigers. I think Tigers will be a little bit better, but
I actually think the Rangers are the worst lineup on paper, but their division isn't strong enough where they're going to they're going to win a couple even in their division, just because there's not enough firepower within the division either to destroy them.
Yeah, that's at least what I look when I look for worst team. It's just whose division, who in the other 4 teams in the division are just going to use them as the punching bag.
Agreed.
I mean, you got that. Yeah, you get that in other sports too. In football, you just get these you get these teams that the other 3 teams are competitive in their division. They just beat the crap out of the bottom tier team. They just everyone beats them. They go 0-6 in their division, and everyone just beats them up.
Yeah. So, all right, real quick, we'll round out the little bit of preview here, but I want you guys' AL and NL MVP, AL and NL Rookie of the Year, and World Series pick and winner.
So we're skipping the Cy Young.
Well, you can go Cy Young too. We'll go Cy Young.
All right, I'm gonna
go
fire these off quick style, okay?
Okay.
Because I'm sure I picked a lot of favorites. I tried to mix it up. I tried to not just pick the favorite, but
okay.
AL MVP, I went with Trout because sure. NL MVP, Ronald Acuna Jr.
Okay.
AL Cy Young, Garrett Cole, and Jacob deGrom for NL Cy Young.
Yep.
And then I went Andrew Vaughn for Rookie of the Year and Ian Anderson for Rookie of the Year.
Okay. Who's your World Series pick? The team.
I'm just going to go with the Yankees because I just think it's so hard to go back-to-back.
Okay.
I should pick the Dodgers. But if the Yankees just put it all together and they don't have many injuries and Stanton and Judge themselves from a couple of years ago, they're just going to be pretty unstoppable. It's just if the bats go – the thing is, if the bats go cold in September, they're screwed.
Yep.
Like we said, their lineup isn't that great. But if their bats are hot, if they get hot at the right time, they could – they're a team I could just see rolling through the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. For AL Cy Young, I am going to take Giolito.
Yeah.
Lucas Giolito. And then for AL MVP, I don't want to – the favorite's always Trout, but I really don't want to. And I almost want to go in my last year's Matt Chapman, but I don't want to do that either. I think I'm going to go with Trout. I got to try to get this one right. Rookie of the Year, I put Randy Arozarena. Manager, I'm giving it to Charlie Montoyo.
Okay.
And the comeback, give it to Trey Mancini. Like I said, if he's pretty much the Alex Smith of baseball this year. So, NL Cy Young, I'm taking Jacob deGrom, which, again, that's the obvious one. NL MVP, give me Mookie Betts. And then Rookie of the Year, I'm going to take Brian Hayes. Manager, I'm going to take Luis Rojas. And then comeback, Mike Soroka.
Okay. And then
I did have Brian Hayes for a second. So I like that pick.
And then the World Series, I do have the Dodgers over Yankees, but it's going to be 7. I just think pitching, it could be 6-2 with the Dodgers, but I think their pitching is just too good. And we talked about the Yankees' potential struggles with pitching. It's just not quite deep enough. So,
I could see the Yankees making a move though.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only thing.
They'll do something. If they're
them,
mentioned, they'll do something.
yeah, like if they're
money,
and if they get like just even though like obviously if Garrett Cole gets injured, like that's terrible. But like if one of their other guys gets injured, they might just like just pull off something crazy and get in a ringer. So
sure. Mm-hmm. My AL Cy Young Award winner, I'm actually going to pick Giolito as well. I think he's primed for the big one. AL MVP, I am going with. Yeah, I'm also going to go with Trout.
All right, sweep for Trout.
Rookie of the year, I'm going with Wander Franco.
Oh, okay. I got him third.
I guess we'll do manager. I'll go with Aaron Boone, I guess. Whatever.
Rocco Baldelli.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Comeback of the year, we'll go.
Tommy Lasorda.
That would be a comeback.
Lasorda. That would be Lazarus. Tommy Lazarus.
We'll go with Corey Kluber for comeback player of the year.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah.
For NL Cy, I am going to actually go with. I'm going to go out of the box and go with Jack Flaherty.
Okay.
NL MVP, I will go with Fernando Tatis Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Rookie of the year, Ke'Bryan Hayes. Manager, Mike Schilt. Comeback player of the year, Buster Posey, I guess, but he doesn't. He opted out, didn't he?
He would still be eligible. Yeah. Opt-outs are technically eligible, even if they opt out.
Okay, that's fine.
Huh.
So pretty good. I would go with that. And then my World Series, I actually was pretty hell bent on actually picking the White Sox until Eloy Jimenez's injury. I think that actually makes a big difference. Now, obviously, if he's back and healthy and good to go, that changes it. But I am going to go Dodgers over Yankees.
Yeah.
I think the White Sox Yankees series will be really exciting, though.
I know. I have that one in 7 as well, so I think that could be fun.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, Jimenez is supposed to miss 5 months.
He had surgery today.
Yeah.
Oof.
He ruptured his pectoral.
Yep.
Yeah.
5 to 6 months.
It's not a great situation for sure.